As many of us know, Columbus Association for the Performing Arts, also known as CAPA, is the patriarch of our arts community here in the city of Columbus. Today on City Chat. In celebration of CAPA's 50th anniversary, we are thrilled to have CAPA President and CEO Chad Whittington to talk about CAPA's history, programs, and future goals. So we wanted to congratulate CAPA on their 50th anniversary, and we've heard that it had some pretty dramatic beginnings. Could you go into detail and tell us a little bit of the history of how CAPA first began?
Sure, it is a very dramatic story. It all began with the Ohio Theater in 1969. It had been scheduled for demolition. As the story goes, the wrecking ball was literally sitting in front of the Ohio Theater. We were that close to losing the theater. There had been some attempts to save it, and they hadn't been successful, but there was a small group of people. 4 individuals came together. It was Larry Fisher, who's still on the CAPA board and has been for our entire 50 years, Scott Whitlock, Robert Carlsberger, and Gene Whalen. And they said, we just can't lose this valuable theater in the Columbus community. And so they met with the owners of the theater. They said, we've got to find a way to save this. They worked out a very creative financing deal, and it basically gave them 30 days to raise the money to buy the theater. Now, these negotiations are taking place. This is over the course of a few days they take place, but it's literally the day that folks had gathered at the theater to auction off all the furnishings in the theater, so that people are waiting outside, eager to get in and buy things for pennies on the dollar. They're inside negotiating. They didn't think they had a deal, so Larry and the others are walking down the steps. If you imagine the main lobby of the theater, they'd been negotiating upstairs. They're walking down the main steps, ready to leave, feeling like they weren't going to be able to save the theater. The owners called them back up, so people are now coming into the theater to, again, begin taking all the beautiful furnishings out, which really would have been the end at that point, because it would have been impossible to bring back. And they went back upstairs and they made a deal. And the rest is history, as they say, but so over the course of those next 30 days, they pulled together the money to save the theater, started the summer movie series, and that's how CAPA began. I should note one other thing that I think is kind of fun, and this tells you maybe how things have changed a little bit too. So CAPA didn't exist. Our birthday is May 21st, 1969, which is in the same week that we're talking about. So Larry Fisher literally formed the corporation and then drove down to the IRS office in Cincinnati, because they had to be a nonprofit in order to pull off everything that they needed to do and take contributions from the city. So drove down to the office there, made his case, and they approved his charitable status right away. Nowadays, to fill out the form would take you more than a day, much less being able to get the approval from the IRS. So this very tight time frame to get everything done and under pressure, and they managed to pull it off. And now 50 years later, you look back and say, what would we be in Columbus if we didn't have the Ohio Theater? You
guys also take care of several other Central Ohio venues. Could you expand a little bit more on that?
Sure. It started with the Ohio Theater, but we've grown a lot since then. And historic theaters are really one of our passions, because it's not only about what's on the stages, but there's a history lesson in and of itself. So we own the Palace and the Southern Theaters as well. So the Ohio and the Palace are right around 2,800 seats at both of those theaters. And then the Palace was built in the 1890s. It's a 900-seat opera house is how it was built. So from an acoustic perspective, it's a fabulous theater. So again, all those are history lessons. You go in and you look up at the architecture, you look at the buildings, which all have a very different personality for each of them, and you think, this is something that we could never recreate today in terms of the detail and the architecture in there. So that's an important piece of what we are as an organization. Beyond those, the historic theaters, we manage the Rife Center for the state of Ohio, so the Davidson Theater and some studios there. And then we manage and operate the Lincoln Theater on the Near East Side, the Drexel Movie House in Bexley, the McCoy Center up in New Albany, and the Schubert Theater in New Haven, Connecticut as well, which is a touring Broadway house.
You guys also support local arts and what is called the shared services model. Could you explain how that model works and what it is?
Like the name implies, it's about sharing the administrative side of the arts. So each organization is a separate organization. We've all got separate boards, but what we do is we take the needs that we have in areas like finance and marketing and fundraising, those duties, and pull the staffing together. So if you think about a small organization that maybe can just afford one person in the accounting department, and then that person is responsible for accounting and HR and IT, trying to fill a lot of different roles. When we bring all the organizations together and pool our resources, we can buy more people that are more customized to each of those jobs. So we have a CFO that runs the finance department, and we've got a director of HR that is an expert in HR, and we've got a director of IT. So very specialized services. And so we can afford positions that are specialized in a way that none of us could afford on our own. So we save a little bit of money by pooling our resources that way and sharing jobs, but more importantly, the level of expertise we get is just much higher than it otherwise would be. And we customize our relationships with each of the groups. This is supposed to be a win-win, so it's good for CAPA, but it needs to be good for the resident groups we work with as well. So there are some relationships where we just partner on finance and IT. And then there are some relationships that are the full scope, meaning all the way from fundraising to accounting and IT. So it's an organic model. It's really started in force here in Columbus about 15 years ago with CATCO, right around 2002, 2003, and it's grown since then.
You guys bring Broadway shows to Columbus. How many shows do you bring each year?
Yeah, this is the exciting part of the business is the shows. I talk about this a lot with people. So for us, there are really two pieces, as you talked about. There's the Broadway Series, and we bring between 8 and 10 weeks of Broadway each year, and each week has 8 shows in it. So about 80, 90 shows on that side. And of course, you know, the most popular show, Hamilton, was just here for 3 weeks in January and February. So we were really excited about that. We're looking forward to a great Broadway season this coming year as well. And it opens with Dear Evan Hansen, which is another really popular show in September. So we're excited about that. But beyond the Broadway series, we do a lot of other presenting throughout the year as well. We do about 60 separate productions that we bring in from all across the country. So some of those productions have multiple events, so the total number of events is well over 100. And those, from a genre perspective, those are all over the board. We bring in comedians, we bring in music acts from all different types of music. We bring in kids shows like PJ Masks and Peppa Pig. So we're trying to bring in something for everybody in the community and make sure that when people think about entertainment in Columbus, they can see everything they want to see here without feeling like they have to go to the East Coast or the West Coast to see it. So that's the space we're trying to fill. There are great resident groups, great arts organizations here in Columbus, like Ballet Met and Columbus Symphony Orchestra, Opera Columbus, that produce and create great art here. So we want to make sure we're capturing the national piece for the local community as well.
Besides the Broadway part of it, you guys also have an expanding education program. What are CAPA's goals there, and what kinds of things are you guys doing as an organization to expand the community outreach?
This is one of the areas I'm most excited about, is the growth we've had in the education program over the last year. And really what we're trying to accomplish is expose more of our community, not only to CAPA, but just to the arts in general. We have about 600,000 visits a year, but there's still a lot of people in the community that either aren't comfortable coming to our theaters or don't know what we offer, that we offer something for them. And that's where education and outreach comes into play. It's reaching children while they're still in the schools and giving them access to the arts. So some of the national artists we have here in Columbus, we can do workshops out in the schools, or we just bring in children-specific shows and bring the students either to our theaters or take those to the schools. And I'm really passionate about this piece of it because I grew up in a small community in Michigan and had really no access to what you would call professional arts as a child. It really wasn't until I started at Ohio State that I had those experiences. And so I feel strongly about making sure every student in the school systems here in Central Ohio have an opportunity to at least understand that there's a bigger world out there when it comes to the arts than what they might experience in the classroom. So that's what drives me personally. There are a lot of other things that we're doing. Going back to the Broadway series for a minute, that's a great opportunity for CAPA to connect local students with people that are performing at the national level, and we do that. So we have workshops where, even with Hamilton, one of the actors from Hamilton spent some time with about 50 local students, just telling them what it's like to be on the road and tour professionally, seeing them dance and sing and giving them some critiques. But it's making that connection to say, hey, there's an opportunity for me. The story that this person tells is similar to my story as an artist, and I can do what they're doing someday. So we're really glad to be able to provide that to the community. One of the things we're most excited about is the CAPA Marquee Awards. Just took place last night at the Lincoln Theater, and this is a brand new program. It was the inaugural year. And what we're doing is, if you're familiar with the Tonys, which is the National Broadway Awards program, it's doing something similar for high school musicals here in Central Ohio. So we had 10 schools participate this year. We went out, we sent judges to their spring musicals, and then last night was the awards ceremony where we awarded, we had awards in 10 different categories: Best Musical, Best Ensemble, Best Leading Actress, Best Leading Actor, categories like that. And what was really special about it was not just that we had a winner in each of those 10 categories, but that we took kids from all 10 schools that participated this year. We did some production numbers with them, and they got to perform in front of their friends and family on the stage of the Lincoln Theater. So if you're in high school theater here in Columbus, being able to do that's a pretty special experience. And we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. A full house, over 500 screaming students in the theater, and it was just it was great. I think there's a lot of recognition for sports, and it's well deserved. There's a lot of talent on the sports side here in Central Ohio, but we felt it was also important to have recognition of the arts, because we've got an incredible amount of talent among our high school students here, and that's what last night was about. So this is now an annual thing. We're hoping to expand to 15 schools next year, but again, just a way to really connect closer with our community in terms of what the arts provide.
Kind of going off of that response, why do you think that arts in our community is like very necessary, and what do you think it really does as far as character building and, in our youth especially? How do you feel about that?
That's a great question. The skills that you learn when you're involved in the arts, and it's all arts, not just performing arts in this case, can be used all throughout your life. Just thinking about last night, self-confidence, learning to be on the stage for the students that were involved and having the confidence to do that, working in teams, learning learning your lines, the memorization, all those sorts of skills. Those are things that you can use no matter if you end up being a performing artist or an engineer. So it's building just those foundational skills that they're trying to teach in all areas of high school. So I think that's why the arts are important. And the other thing is, the arts touch everybody's life. Even if someone says, well, I'm not involved in the arts, I don't go down to the theaters, you probably listen to music either on the radio or on your phone or whatever the case may be, and you enjoy art as you're driving down the road. You watch television at home. Those are all offshoots of what we do, and it's part of the bigger community that we live in. So just like physical activity and sports are important all throughout your life, the arts are too, and I think that's why it's so important to give access to people at the level that we do them, and then maybe coming down to the theater isn't their thing, but if they find some other way to connect through the arts, that's a win for all of us.
What does the future look like for CAPA, and where do you see CAPA 50 years from now?
Yeah, I think looking ahead 50 years, it's that's a tough thing to do, and so I think the most important thing for CAPA is to stay flexible. That's really been one of the keys for us in the last 50 years, is to adjust as the community grows and to provide what the community needs on the arts side. I think it's a great time to be in Columbus. The city's growing, it's very vibrant. The community leaders are focused on things that will expand our national profile even more. And so we in the arts want to do our part to keep up with that growth in the city. So for CAPA, reaching more members of our community, that's why the education outreach is so important right now as we continue to grow as a city. We want to make sure that everybody understands the incredible arts programming that's here and that people take advantage of that. We say, and I think this is a compliment to our city, that we're well past the point where any one person can keep up with all the arts and culture offerings that take place in the city. So that means we're getting to the point we have something for everyone, and that's a great place to be. Technology will continue to be a growing piece of the arts, and we're starting to see that now. If you think about shows in the upcoming season, we've got Anastasia on the Broadway season, and rather than a set, the backdrop is really a digital screen of incredible quality, right, that they can project all kinds of things on, from a scene where you see snow falling to a mansion. So this integration between the live performing arts and technology is going to continue to grow. So I think we embrace that and take advantage of that, but that will continue to be the trend going forward. Esports, is there a role for esports in what we do at the theaters? I don't know yet, but I think that's something that we need to explore. And as we talk about the city growing, we're in the business of spaces, performing arts spaces. We will need more of those spaces as we grow as a city, so we're always looking at those opportunities. I mentioned earlier, we've got the Southern at 900 seats, and we've got the Ohio and Palace at 2,800 seats. I'd love, when the time is right for the city, to have a theater that's 1,300 to 1,500 seats to fill that gap. And the great thing is, from a schedule perspective, we're very full in all of our theaters, so we know we're getting to that point where we need more performing arts space here in Columbus.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, just again, I think it's an exciting time to be in the arts in Columbus. I'm very appreciative of all the support we get from our community, and I mean that in the wide sense, whether it's the city itself, which has been a great supporter of the arts, or our corporate community, or the individuals that come and attend our programs and all of the other great cultural offerings of the city. The way to have a great arts community is to have the community involved in what goes on, and Columbus just does a fantastic job of that, and we're very appreciative.
For more information on Columbus Association for the Performing Arts, visit www.capa.com. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.